Hello. A little bit of a different one this week. I've had a few people asking for a little bit more detail about how exactly the sailing system works. So in some similar projects or other games, your control over the rigging and the sails is pretty programmatic. So if you control the position of the sails at all, it's usually a matter of just rotating the yard or sail until it's positioned optimally um, into the wind, and that's often the end of it. And I'm not saying that in the sense of criticism, it's just that's a sort of simplified way a lot of these projects operate, and for better or for worse, in this project, it works a little bit differently. So, in this project, you have both more and a little bit less control over the rigging. You don't control the larger components like the yards and sails directly. Rather, you work on or rather, you control the individual ropes at various points to control exactly how things work. And much of the rest is controlled by either Unity's physics or well, a rather large number of custom scripts. So, for example, the yards here are going to attempt to position themselves relative to the sail's center of mass, um, along with the position of the wind. So right now the wind is blowing in that direction, and you can see the yards are positioned mostly perpendicular to that because that's essentially what should happen. But if, for example, the wind is coming from directly astern, the yard will attempt to position itself again perpendicular to it just because the wind should fill up the back of the sail. Right now it cannot do that because the ropes don't have enough slack, but you can control the slack or length of the ropes at any point with the mouse wheel. So I'm just going to give it a whole bunch of slack here. And you should see the mast will begin to turn. There we go. And you're going to need some player input to ensure that this happens in the proper way. This one, for example, would have been more optimal to shorten the rope up front and have the sail spin the opposite direction, but that's really rather neither here nor there. The point is you can't directly control where the sail or yard is, but you can influence its positioning by adjusting the ropes, reeling them in, or spooling them out to allow the sail to take the wind in whatever the most full position is relative to its position. As far as the multipliers that are going to happen, multipliers meaning the effect the sail will have on the ship's maximum speed, it's going to be biased much like it would be on a real sail. So a triangular Latin sail like this is not going to be at its most efficient when directly downwind. Rather, it will generate more lift when positioned around 45 degrees, but there's a bit of play there. So you can position these sails to be able to make at least some headway in most conditions. Obviously, you can't sail directly into the wind no matter what you do, but you can get surprisingly close, and for the sake of gameplay, I have made some adjustments there to make it a little bit more forgiving than it would be normally, but still, you cannot sail directly into the wind. So in keeping with the previous videos where I've gone about making changes to the individual ships to improve the handling and general gameplay. You may have seen a little bit in the previous clips, but I have made some changes to the Zebek model as well. I've remade a good chunk of the bow to add some stairs and some rigging up here to allow you to properly interact with the bowsprit rigging. So it's a little bit more detailed looking up front. But I personally like the look, and it's a little bit more functional. There's also a bit more texture work done, particularly to the front of the keel and the bowsprit itself. And lastly, this is from a functional loaded save, which I'm fairly pleased to have functional. This is my current working prototype of the main menu as well, so I'm still working on that, but glad to have it in at least a somewhat functional state rather than a bunch of nested menus that didn't really work properly. So it's starting to look like a bit of a functional project. I need to move the buttons around a bit more and make them a little easier to read, but that's where it's at for the time being. Next up, I wanted to give a very, very brief look of a new ship I've been working on here. I've been trying to avoid adding new ships for the most part, but the reason I have started on this ship is my intent for this game is to have at least two different sail styles. So you may be able to see just by the designs on this ship that this is a junk. A rather goofily colored one. If anyone's wondering exactly why it's like that, it's just while I'm in progress with the models, I tend to make them horribly gross bright colors simply because it helps to tell the parts or the individual components apart while I'm working on it. Obviously the ship will not be this colorful when it's complete. So I've put the Setia on hold for now, mainly because I find it is too large for the current content that's in the game. So I want to focus for now more on small to medium sized sailing ships. This one, for example, is almost exactly the same size as the Zebek. But I feel it'll be interesting to have something with a different sail plan and a fairly significantly different way of handling those sails with a battened junk rig. So yeah, I just wanted to briefly give a sneak peek of this one, as I've been dropping a fair bit of time into the model on this one, so I'm pretty happy with how it's coming out so far. But anyway, I wanted to thank you for watching, and I'll have a new one probably in the new year. So Merry Christmas.